Hi, I'm Ivania. They threw parties I never got invited to, took my name off family records like it was a typo, told anyone who asked that I had moved away. But the truth? They stole everything I helped build, quietly, strategically, behind my back. Until one overlooked clause, one forgotten piece of paper, turned their silence into my power. Have you ever been betrayed by the people you love the most? Had to choose between peace and justice, even when both hurt? Before we dive in, tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. It was a Sunday in early spring when I found out. I'd just finished a client visit in South Dallas, and as I drove past my parents' house on Timberleaf Drive, I spotted the balloons, bright, cheerful, too cheerful. Cars lined both sides of the street, and a banner flapped in the wind, celebrating our pillar, Callista, 10 years leading Bundy freight. Callista. Not our family, not the Bundys, just her. I parked 2 houses down and stayed in the car. I wasn't even surprised. That was the worst part. When I was younger, I used to think everything would even out someday, that if I kept showing up, kept helping, kept choosing them, they'd see me. But after a while, the invisibility stopped feeling like bad luck and started feeling deliberate. I drove off before anyone saw me. That night, back home, I pulled out an old plastic bin I'd been meaning to go through. It was filled with forgotten things, yellowed report cards, ticket stubs, a friendship bracelet from 3rd grade, and buried near the bottom, a silver hairpin. One single letter engraved on it, E, a gift from my mom on my 16th birthday. As long as you wear it, she told me, I'll always see you as strong. Back then, I believed her. That hairpin had made me feel visible. Now, it just felt like proof of a lie. I tucked it into its velvet pouch and slid it under a stack of sweaters. I wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. While reheating leftover chili, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. But something in me said, "Pick up." "Ivania," a man's voice said. "This is Gerald Hellbrook. I used to be your parents' estate attorney. I'm sorry to call out of nowhere, but I've been meaning to follow up on the trust transition paperwork. You never returned your copy." I blinked. What paperwork? "It was sent certified mail about 3 months ago, addressed to your place in Garland." "I never got anything." He paused. "Would you have time to meet in person?" he asked. "There are a few things we should probably go over." The next morning, I stopped by the post office. The clerk pulled up my records. Apparently, someone had filed a change of service form, online, digitally signed. "By Callista." "I'm sorry," the clerk said, turning the screen toward me. "Your name was temporarily removed. Mail was forwarded to Callista Bundy." I didn't say a word, just nodded and left. By noon, I was at Mr. Hellbrook's office. He brought me into a quiet, window-dimmed conference room. He looked nervous. "I just want to be clear," he said. "What I'm about to show you reflects your parents' most recent instructions, but it might come as a surprise." He laid a thick stack of legal documents on the table. I skimmed the signatures, the notary stamps. Every property, every company share, all of it, transferred to Callista. "All of it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "I assumed you'd already seen this." I shook my head. "Was I included in the older version?" "Yes," he said, "as a co-beneficiary. That version is still on file, unless they formally revoked it." He got up, walked to his safe, and pulled out a thick cream envelope sealed with gold wax. "This was meant for you," he said. "Dated 6 months before the new version. Your parents dropped it off themselves." I stared at it, my hand suddenly cold. "Why didn't I get this?" "Your sister came to collect it, said she'd hand-deliver it." "Of course she did." I opened the seal and unfolded the letter. The first line made my stomach drop. This wasn't a sentimental message. It was legal, a notarized copy of the original trust. It named me as a 50% co-owner of our parents' real estate and retirement accounts. Dated 14 months ago. My mother's signature, my father's too. And in the margin, a yellow sticky note in Mr. Hellbrook's handwriting. "For Ivania, copy retained." I sat there, numb. Mr. Hellbrook stepped out of the room, giving me space. 14 months. That was before Callista moved back in. Before the sudden family gatherings I was never told about. Before the silence started to feel like exile. He returned quietly and set a glass of water in front of me. "Take it home," he said. "Don't rush. Sit with it first." I nodded. "Thank you." My voice barely came out. I drove home with the envelope in the passenger seat like it weighed 50 pounds. I thought about calling someone, anyone, but who? My parents, Callista? No, not yet. I sat on the edge of my couch with the letter in hand and cried. Not the kind of cry that screams. The kind that confirms what you already knew. Deep down, this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. A calculated one. And I hadn't even been invited to the table. In between tears, I started making a list. I'd helped pay off the second mortgage after the crash. $78,300 over 6 years. That included emergency repairs, a new roof, a surprise tax bill. Every time, my mom called it a favor to the family. Apparently, family favors don't come with inheritance rights. Later that day, I drove to my dad's old mechanic shop. I hadn't been there in months. It still smelled like motor oil and dust. He looked up from a stack of invoices, gave me a nod. Not warmth. Recognition. Didn't expect you today, he said. I shrugged, just stopping by. My eyes drifted to the back wall, the founder's plaque. I'd designed it 10 years ago. It used to list my name next to Callista's, right under our parents. Now, just 3 names. Mine was gone. I stepped closer, pretending to admire the polish. Did the plaque get updated? He didn't look up. Callista's been more involved lately. She earned it. I bit the inside of my cheek. So erasing someone now counts as earning it? He shrugged. You moved out. You're doing your own thing, right? My own thing. Paying their bills. Running logistics for the business. Living in the margins. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I went on the Dallas County Clerk's portal. Typed in the family address. The deed popped up. 3 months ago, the house was legally transferred to Callista. No joint ownership, no trust. Just her. Then I searched the warehouse lot. Also hers. No meeting, no heads up. Just done. That's why the lawyer had called. Legally, he was required to notify anyone listed on the previous trust. They hadn't forgotten me. They had tried to delete me. I stepped out into the yard, holding the letter like a shield. The sky was turning pink behind the roof. I looked down at my name on that document. Formal, legally binding, unmistakable. They erased me, I whispered, because they thought I wouldn't fight. My phone buzzed. A text from Callista. Don't make this messy. You were never supposed to have it anyway. I stared at the screen. That wasn't just confirmation. It was ignition. The anger didn't explode. It crystallized. Not rage. Resolution. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of stress. Because my brain wouldn't stop cataloging. Names, numbers, dates, what I'd given, what they'd taken, what I hadn't seen until it was too late. Around 3 a.m., I sat on the living room floor with papers spread around me like puzzle pieces. Trust documents, tax records, notes scribbled on the backs of envelopes. It felt obsessive. Maybe it was. But I needed to understand how deep this went. How long they'd been planning to push me out. Because this wasn't just oversight. It was orchestration. By morning, I had a new plan. I took a personal day from work. No details. Just a text to my supervisor. Family matter. I'll be offline. Coffee in hand, I made a list of everything I needed to verify. Top of the list, the deed to the Cedar Ridge Lake House. My grandfather built it himself. Summers there had been the one stretch of childhood that felt untouched by rivalry or quiet punishments. If there was any place that still held the possibility of healing, it was that house. I drove back to the records office. Inside, I requested every filing tied to my family name over the past 5 years. When the clerk handed me the folder, my fingers tingled. I flipped through it quickly, then stopped. There it was. The deed to Cedar Ridge, transferred 3 months ago. From Ronald C. Bundy to Callista E. Bundy. Signed, stamped, sealed. But as I stared at the signature line, my stomach turned. It looked like Dad's name, but the loops were off. The angle was wrong. The R didn't swing the same way. The B in Bundy lacked its usual flair, the flourish that always looked like a 6. Something was wrong, and I knew exactly where I'd seen a signature like that before. On a permission slip in middle school. The one Mom signed when Dad was out of town. It had looked close enough back then, harmless. Now, not so much. I made 2 copies, slid them into my folder, walked out without a word. The car ride home felt longer than it was. I didn't cry, didn't rage. I just kept seeing her text. You were never supposed to have it anyway. It played in my head like a bell, clear and constant. Back home, I sat down and opened my contacts. Scrolled to a name I hadn't dialed in years, Mr. Ledbetter. He had been the Bundy family's original estate attorney. Retired now, but still practicing part-time out of his study near McKinn Avenue. I didn't expect him to answer, but he did. "Avania," he said, like no time had passed. "You sound like someone who needs the truth fast." "I do," I said. "Come by this afternoon. I'll make coffee." His study hadn't changed. Same worn rug, same leather chairs that squeaked, same bookshelf that bowed in the middle from too many law books. He looked older but not faded, sharp-eyed, still steady. I laid out the documents in front of him, slowly, let him read without interruption. When he got to the deed for the lake house, his brow furrowed. "This signature's suspicious," he said. I nodded. "I think my mother forged it." He didn't flinch. "I've seen that before," he said softly. "But what makes this particularly interesting? Your father created a contingency trust in your name a decade ago." I froze. "A what?" "A trust that activates if he's declared incapacitated, or if credible evidence of financial manipulation comes to light." He tapped the forged deed with one finger. "This, if verified by a handwriting analyst, could trigger that clause." My heart pounded. "Would that override the revised documents?" "If the trust was never revoked and the conditions are met, yes." I sat back, my mind reeling. He looked at me closely. "You were always the quiet one, weren't you?" I didn't answer. Didn't need to. I left with the documents in one hand and a fire in the other. I called 2 people on the way home, a mobile notary and a forensic handwriting expert. Not because I wanted to sue, but because I needed to be ready. I wanted this documented, verified, et cetera, like armor. That night I scanned everything into a secure cloud folder. Named it Bundy Archive. It felt clinical, cold, but it was mine. Saturday passed in a blur. I couldn't focus, couldn't sit still. I cleaned the same countertop 3 times. My body was moving like it was preparing for battle, even if my mind was still playing catch-up. I kept going back to one thought. They never thought I'd notice. See. Then Sunday morning came. With it, a text from Callista. "Mom wants brunch, Stone Cafe, neutral ground, no drama." I stared at it for a long time, then replied, "I'll be there," because I wasn't going to blow up. I wasn't going to cry or plead or accuse. I was going to listen, observe, measure the distance between the person they thought I still was and the woman I'd become. Stone Cafe in Plano was as curated as Callista's wardrobe. Industrial lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows, artisanal menus, everything just so. They were already seated when I walked in. Mom wore her coral blazer, the one she reserved for doctor appointments and conversations she wanted to control. Callista, dressed in ivory, greeted me with a light air kiss. "Evie," she said, like it was a nickname we both cherished. "Glad you made it." I didn't smile, didn't scowl, just sat down. The waiter brought mimosas. I declined. Mom tilted her head. "Still off caffeine?" "I'm good," I said simply. Conversation started light. Weather. Church announcements. A neighbor's fence dispute. But Callista led every topic, quoting verses, dropping names from charity galas, talking just a beat too long, like she knew someone was listening. Then Mom reached across the table and lightly touched my wrist. "You'll understand someday, sweetie. We didn't want to burden you with estate stuff. You've always been a little more sensitive." Sensitive. There it was again. Not an adjective, a dismissal. I folded my napkin and laid it on the table. "I may be sensitive," I said evenly, "but I'm not stupid, and I'm not invisible." Callista's smile flickered. Mom pulled her hand back. "I'm going to head out," I said. Callista leaned in. "Don't be dramatic, Evie." "Drama," I said, "requires performance. I'm just done pretending this isn't real." And with that, I stood and left. No storm. No scene. Just silence, the kind that carries more weight than shouting ever could. But as I neared the door, Callista called out after me, "You're overreacting. No one's trying to take anything from you." I paused, turned slightly. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what the paperwork says." Outside, the air hit different. Cooler. Sharper. Clean. I didn't look back. Didn't check if they followed. Because I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I was done asking for recognition. Now, I was ready to claim what had always been mine. The glass door of the county clerk's office thudded shut behind me, sealing off the noise of downtown traffic. I stood there in the hallway, holding a manila envelope I hadn't even meant to bring. Inside it, my questions. And maybe, if I was lucky, the start of some real answers. At the records window, I gave my name and asked for a full search. Any property transfers filed under the Bundy name in the last 5 years. I expected a shrug, maybe some delay, but the clerk barely looked up. "Go to workstation 3, she said, sliding a visitor badge across the counter. "Everything's digital." I sat down and logged in, typed in my father's name. Up popped deed after deed, some I'd expected, others I hadn't. Then I saw it. The lakeside property, the one my grandfather built with his bare hands, the one that still smelled like cedar and sunscreen and summer. Transferred from Ronald C. Bundy to Callista E. Bundy. Stamped, certified, neat. But the date of notarization? The same weekend, Dad had been in the hospital for a mild stroke. I remembered because I was the one who took him. I sat with him through the CT scan, held his hand when he couldn't lift a cup of water. There was no way he had signed anything that weekend. I stared at the screen, pulse rising. Then I looked again. The name of the notary. Texas signed notary, remote division. I copied the registry number, cross-checked it online. Registered to Monica Verrill, Callista's old college roommate. The same one who helped her fake an alibi years ago when she wrecked Mom's car and claimed it was a hit and run. Suddenly, the puzzle wasn't complicated anymore. It was clear. This wasn't just manipulation. It was fraud. I printed everything. The forged deed, the registry details, the timeline. The weight of it all made my steps feel heavier as I walked out into the afternoon sun. The breeze brushed my skin, but I didn't feel it. I just heard one thing over and over in my mind. You were never supposed to have it anyway. This wasn't favoritism. This was theft. I drove home on autopilot. Didn't turn on the radio. Didn't call anyone. Just drove straight back and went to the fireproof box under my bed. Inside was the old living trust. The one Dad had asked me to keep safe, just in case. I unfolded it with careful fingers. In the event of retirement or death, it read in his even, meticulous handwriting, all family properties and assets are to pass to Ivana K. Stroud, sole daughter and legal heir. My breath caught. There was his signature. Not a forgery. Not an approximation. The real one. The wide-looping R in Ronald. The B in Bundy. That always looked like a 6. He used to joke about that when he signed checks. This wasn't just a document. It was a promise. A memory flooded back. 16 years old, sitting on the back porch, sobbing after getting rejected from the college of my dreams. Dad sat beside me, didn't say much, just placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "One day, everything will be yours, not because you asked for it, because you earned it." I'd buried that memory, until now. I laid the forged deed next to the real trust. Then I opened a new folder on my laptop, named it, Active Case Stroud. Inside, I dropped everything. Original living trust, forged deed, Monica Verrill's notary registration, screenshots of Callista's texts, bank records showing the mortgage payments I made, voice memos I'd quietly saved over the years, Mom talking about Callista's sacrifices, Dad saying, "We'll fix it when things settle down," and finally, a draft letter to the family's current estate attorney. I didn't send the letter. Not yet. But it was ready, because next time someone tried to ambush me at a family brunch or smooth over betrayal with a glass of wine and fake warmth, I'd have more than words. I'd have proof. That night, I sat on the floor of the reading room, files scattered around me like broken glass. The more I organized, the clearer it became. I had the leverage. Not in theory, in ink. I brewed tea I never drank. Paced the kitchen. Checked the locks. Then sat down and whispered, "No more asking, no more waiting." I wasn't afraid. I was done. By noon the next day, I was back on Timberleaf Drive. The house looked the same. The magnolia tree still leaned slightly to the left, like it was listening. But the old wind chime was gone, replaced with a sterile one made of glass. Delicate, cold. Like someone wanted to erase the sound of who we used to be. I pulled into the driveway slowly. No honking, no announcement. Each step up the walkway felt weighted with everything I had never said. Callista opened the door wearing white again, of course. Not cream, not blush, white. Like it was her stage, her coronation. "Glad you could make it," she said sweetly. "Everyone's waiting in the living room." I said nothing, just walked past her. Inside, the room was set like a scene in a play. Dad in his recliner, arms crossed, silent. Mom perched on the couch, hands folded like she was hosting Bible study. And on the coffee table, a folder. Callista reached for it. "This is just a formality," she said, smiling. "Final draft of the division agreement. It's already been reviewed." I held up a hand. "Before we start," I unzipped my bag and pulled out my own documents. One by one, I laid them on the table. Original trust, signature analysis, notary record. Each page landed like thunder. Callista's smile cracked. This, I said, tapping the trust, is the legally binding version, signed by both parents, dated before any of this nonsense began. The room froze. Mom shifted. Dad suddenly looked smaller. And this, I continued, is a copy of the deed transfer, notarized by Monica Verrill, your college roommate. I slid forward the registry printout. Callista's lips pressed into a hard line. And this letter is from my attorney. It confirms that all of this, I waved a hand over the documents, can be contested, that forged signatures are civil and criminal offenses. Callista's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. I looked her dead in the eye. Then take me to court. Callista scoffed and tossed her hair like we were still 17, and this was a high school hallway. You're being vindictive, she said. You always were. You left. You were never around. You think you're better than us because you have a job and... what? A folder full of old papers? I didn't flinch. I came back because someone had to remind you. I don't need your permission to exist. My voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. It landed. Mom gasped, not out of surprise, but out of fear. She reached for Dad's hand. He didn't squeeze back. You never even said you wanted the estate, Mom said softly. You've always been so... sensitive. We thought Callista could handle things more... practically. No, I said. You thought she could handle things more quietly. And just like that, silence took the room hostage. No one moved. Then my phone buzzed. I pressed speaker. Norel's voice came through, calm and clear. This is Attorney Norel Nix. If we do not receive written confirmation of mutual resolution by Monday at 9 a.m., we will proceed with formal injunction and full review of all disputed assets. I trust that's clear. Nobody spoke. Dad rubbed his temples like the room was giving him a headache. Callista looked like she wanted to scream. I stood. Palms dry, voice steady. I didn't need to fake confidence anymore. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye on the bookshelf. A photo frame. It was from that family trip to San Antonio. 3 smiling faces, Mom, Dad, Callista. I remembered the day. Because I was the one who took the photo. I had propped the camera on a cooler, hit the timer, and run to stand in the middle. But here, in the frame, I was missing. Erased. I picked it up, flipped it open. And there, folded behind the printed photo, was the original. Unedited. There I was, sun in my eyes, grinning, arm draped around Dad's shoulder. They hadn't erased me completely. They'd just tried. I folded the picture and slipped it into my bag. Because what they tried to bury, the truth had protected. And as I walked out, the only sound behind me was the solid tap of my heels on hardwood. No voices. No apologies. No more lies. The next morning, the courthouse steps felt colder than I remembered. Not because of the weather. Because of what I carried. The folder in my arm wasn't just paper. It was proof of everything they'd tried to take. The courtroom was plain. No drama. No grandeur. Just 4 beige walls and a judge who looked more tired than intimidating. But I didn't need him to be impressed. I needed him to listen. My parents sat on one side, muted colors, stiff posture. Callista next to them wore gray this time. No white, no performance. She didn't look at me. I sat beside Norel. She nodded once, her eyes already locked on the stack of evidence in front of her. The judge called us to order. Then, calmly, you may proceed with your opening statement. Norel stood. Your Honor, she began, we would like to submit an audio recording into evidence before we proceed. The judge nodded. She pressed play. The room filled with sound. Fuzzy, slightly muffled, but clear enough to recognize the voices. Callista's laughter. Mom's sharp tone. And then Dad, low and muttering. Manipulated the dumb youngest one. She won't check. She just wants to be loved. Silence fell like a curtain. Even the judge blinked. Has this recording been verified? He asked. Yes, Your Honor, Norel said. Time-stamped, authenticated, and obtained with consent from a third party present at the time. Callista stood up, voice shrill. That's completely out of context. The judge didn't blink. Sit down, Ms. Stroud. This is not a theater. She slowly sat. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. That recording didn't just hurt. It confirmed everything. All the late-night doubts. The second-guessing. The ache I'd carried for years without language. Now it had sound. Now it was real. From my folder, I pulled out a single sheet. This, I said, standing, is the part they forgot. Norel took the page, handed it to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. He read it silently, his eyebrows lifting halfway through. It's a clause in the original trust, I explained, signed by my grandfather before he passed. It gives me full veto authority over any asset transfer made before I turn 35. The judge flipped to the front page of the document. And when is your 35th birthday? 2 days from now, I said. He looked at Callista, then at me. Well, he said slowly, as of the day after tomorrow, the contested assets cannot be moved without your express consent. Callista's mouth dropped open. She turned to our parents. You knew about this? She whispered, eyes wild. Mom opened her mouth, but no words came. Dad stared at the floor like it might swallow him whole. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out something small, crinkled. Delicate, a tiny origami crane, faded and fragile. Grandpa had taught me how to fold it. I was 8. We were in his garage, covered in sawdust. You're the one with wings, he told me, tucking it into his wallet. Remember that. They gave it back to me after his funeral. I placed it on the desk. Unfolded truth made of paper. The judge cleared his throat. I'm issuing an interim ruling, he said. Effective immediately. All Bundy estate assets currently in dispute are frozen. Probate records will be reopened. A formal investigation into potential fraud is authorized. Callista slumped. Mom turned to me, eyes glistening. But before she could speak, the judge raised his hand. You've had your say. I turned and walked out. No applause. No dramatics. Just a quiet kind of triumph that didn't need to be declared. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about restoration. And when I reached the courthouse steps and felt the wind pick up, I breathed in, not pride, but something better. Relief. The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I pulled into the driveway of my grandfather's house. No to my house now. The title deed said it plainly, Ivana K. Stroud. But I wasn't arriving like a victor. I didn't feel like someone who had won. I felt like someone who had finally exhaled after holding their breath for too many years. The house looked almost unchanged. New paint on the shutters, trimmed hedges, a fresh welcome mat, but the soul of it, still intact. Inside, it smelled faintly of cedar and old books. I placed my keys on the entry table, fingers brushing the worn wood. The same table where Grandpa used to leave little post-it notes with dad jokes scribbled on them. The same one Mom tried to throw out once, but I dragged it back inside. I walked through each room slowly, like I was reacquainting myself with a version of home I'd been forced to forget. In the kitchen, the window above the sink still framed the garden. I stood there, hands on the counter, remembering Grandpa rinsing tomatoes in the morning light, humming a tune I never quite learned the words to. The air was quiet. Not empty, but peaceful. A knock on the front door jolted me out of that stillness. I opened it to find Mrs. Alden, our old neighbor. She held a weathered envelope in one gloved hand. Found this in the old church mailbox, she said. It's for you. Looks old. I took it gently. The handwriting on the front stopped me cold. My grandfather's, I whispered. Back inside, I sat down in the old armchair that still creaked in the same spot and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, dated 5 days before he passed. The handwriting was steady, deliberate, every loop and line a memory. A.V., if you're reading this, it means the winds shifted. I feared they might. People forget what's fair when fear gets involved, but I never forgot your heart. That's why I chose you, not to possess, but to protect, to speak softly, but stand when it matters. Sometimes justice takes time, but it always knows where to land. Love always, Papa. My throat closed. Not with grief, not with rage, with something softer. Invalidation. All the years of being quiet, of not pushing back, of letting them take and take and take, because I believe love meant sacrifice. This letter didn't erase that pain, but it proved I hadn't imagined everything. It proved someone saw me, even when no one else did. Later that evening, as the sky turned dusky blue, my phone buzzed. Voicemail. Months. I stared at it for a while before pressing play. Her voice came through soft, almost hesitant. Evie, we didn't know how much you meant until you walked away. Maybe we didn't want to. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just hope you're okay. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, because I didn't want vengeance. Not really. I just wanted them to stop pretending I was invisible. And maybe, finally, they saw that now. That night, I climbed the stairs to Grandpa's old study. I'd turned it into a reading room. White curtains, a few plants, a shelf filled with books he would have loved. On the mantel, I placed the origami crane. Not as a memory, as a marker. A line in the sand between who I used to be and who I was now. The child who folded paper birds and believed being the good one was enough? She lived here now, but not quietly. Not invisibly. A proud, whole, seen. I didn't burn any bridges, but I wasn't rebuilding them either. Down the street, I heard kids laughing. One girl chased a paper bird as it danced on the breeze. I watched her from the porch, smiled, because I wasn't chasing anything anymore. Not their approval, not their apologies. They gave away the estate thinking I was dispensable, but I was always the foundation. The one who stayed, the one who watched, the one who remembered, and now, the one who finally stood up. The next morning, I stepped outside, locked the front door behind me, and paused on the porch. No announcements, no grand declarations, just the soft hum of a new life beginning. Because sometimes the quietest exits are the ones that echo longest. I wasn't leaving anything behind. I was stepping into something new. Monday came without ceremony. No alarm. No anxiety. Just that steady thrum in my chest. Clarity. I dressed in black slacks and a clean blazer. Simple, sharp, no makeup, no perfume. I didn't want to impress anyone. I wanted to be heard. By 8:45, I was back at the courthouse steps, this time with Norel beside me. She walked with her usual cool intensity, her leather portfolio clutched tightly under one arm. Inside, everything was in order. We had documents, audio files, forensic reports, notarized timelines, every page labeled, verified, and protected. Because we both knew truth doesn't always win, but preparation gives it teeth. The courtroom was the same as before, beige, sterile, humming with fluorescent lights, but the energy had shifted. Callista entered last. She didn't wear white this time, just a dull gray suit and a twisted mouth. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. We both knew what was coming. The judge arrived. We stood, sat. Are all parties present? He asked. Norel stood. Yes, Your Honor. We're ready to proceed. It began with a timeline. Norel's voice was calm and exact, laying out every transaction, every forgery, every time Callista had leveraged silence to take more than she was owed. Each detail landed in the room like a gavel strike. Callista's lawyer, a young man with too many tabs open in his mind, objected here and there, but nothing stuck. Then came the final reveal. The clause in the original trust, Norel said, explicitly grants Ms. Stroud veto authority over any property or asset transfer made before her 35th birthday. The judge nodded. We've reviewed that. It's legally binding. That's when Callista broke. This is insane, she snapped, standing abruptly. She left. She wasn't even involved. She didn't want any of it. The judge looked unmoved. The law doesn't recognize emotional assumptions. It recognizes signatures. And the combination of forged deeds and trust violations makes this a serious concern. Her attorney tugged her sleeve. But she wasn't done. She thinks she's better than us, Callista hissed. Just because she has a job and a folder full of documents doesn't mean she's family. I stood slowly. You're right, I said. She froze. I have a job, a folder full of papers, a life I built while you rewrote our history, and all I ever wanted was to be seen as part of it. No tremble in my voice. Not anymore. The judge turned to me. Ms. Stroud, do you intend to pursue a civil claim for damages? Norel looked at me, waiting. I paused, then shook my head. No, Your Honor. I don't want their money. I don't want revenge. I want the original estate structure restored. I want the manipulation stopped. That's it. The judge leaned back in his chair. So noted. Then he turned to my parents. You've remained silent throughout these proceedings. Do you have anything to say before I issue my ruling? My father kept his head down. My mother opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. The judge tapped his gavel once. In light of the presented evidence, he said, all contested assets within the Bundy estate are hereby frozen pending reallocation according to the original trust. A full audit of related financial activity will be conducted. The court finds sufficient grounds for investigation into potential fraud. Then, turning to me, and Ms. Stroud, you are reinstated as sole heir and primary trustee, effective immediately. And just like that, it was over. Not with a bang, but with a sentence that put the truth back where it belonged. Outside, wind whipped the courthouse steps, scattering leaves like confetti for no one. I stood there for a moment, folder still tucked tight against my chest. I didn't feel victorious. I felt my diamond. Not because I'd won something, but because I'd stopped waiting for someone else to give me permission to exist. Norel stepped beside me. That what you needed? She asked. I thought for a second. No, I said, but it was enough. She smiled, nodded. Then you'll be fine. And just like that, she walked away. That evening, back at the house, I lit a single candle in the reading room. I opened my laptop, pulled up the folder labeled Inheritance Integrity, and deleted it. Every file, every screenshot, every scanned document. Not out of denial, out of release. I didn't need proof anymore. I had peace. The next morning came quiet. Not empty, still. I brewed a cup of coffee in the kitchen, using the same mug Grandpa used to love. Carried it to the back porch. Sat in the old rocking chair that creaked like it remembered me. The breeze carried the scent of cut grass and warm soil. And for the first time in years, I just sat. No plans. No calculations. Just breath. Just me. And the life I hadn't been allowed to claim until now. Later that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Callista stood there. No white dress, no perfectly styled hair, no smug smirk. Just jeans, a faded hoodie, and a cardboard box in her hands. Her eyes were puffy, her voice flat. These were yours, she said. Found them in Mom's garage. She handed me the box. Inside were things I hadn't seen in years. My old sketchbooks, a charm bracelet from 8th grade, the high school yearbook that vanished the summer Callista got grounded and blamed me. I didn't say anything. I was waiting for an apology, an explanation, anything. But she just stared at her shoes. I didn't expect it to go this far, she finally said. You mean getting caught? I asked. She flinched. I mean everything. There was a long silence, not tense, just hollow. Then she looked up at me, eyes red but dry. I don't know how to fix it. You don't, I said softly. She nodded like she already knew. Turned. Started down the porch steps. Halfway to her car, she stopped and asked, Do you hate me? I didn't answer right away. No, I said, but I don't trust you. She nodded again. And this time, she didn't look back. That night, I opened the box she'd brought me. I flipped through the sketchbooks, pages filled with messy charcoal lines and dreamy pencil cities I used to draw when I was supposed to be doing math homework. In the back of one notebook, folded between 2 pages, I found something I hadn't seen before. A letter. From Dad. The ink had faded a little, but the words were clear. Evie, if you're ever reading this, I guess I didn't say enough when I had the chance. You were always the one I didn't worry about. Maybe that was the mistake. I thought you'd be fine. I didn't realize how much it cost to always be the strong one. Callista demanded attention. You earned it. Quietly, steadily. I should have said thank you more. I hope you find something better than the legacy we left behind. Love, Dad. I sat with that letter in my lap for a long time. It didn't erase the hurt, but it softened something. Made space for a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Sometimes acknowledgement isn't enough to rebuild trust, but it's where healing begins, even if it comes late. A week later, I planted something. Out behind the house, in the spot where Grandpa used to grow tomatoes, I dug 2 holes and placed 2 young magnolia saplings side by side. New roots. A new beginning. I wasn't replacing what I'd lost. I was growing something of my own. A symbol, not of betrayal, but of what could come after. That evening, I got a message from an unknown number. It was from someone I hadn't heard from since childhood, one of Callista's old friends, the kind of girl who used to smile at me in the hallway but never invite me to sit with them at lunch. Just saw the video. You weren't invisible. We all saw you. We just didn't know how to say it then. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not right away. But I saved it. Because sometimes closure doesn't come in a sweeping apology. Sometimes it arrives in tiny fragments, pieces you tuck away and carry with you. The months that followed were quiet, not lonely, just intentional. I repainted the front hallway, chose colors I loved. I filled photo frames with people who showed up, friends who called just to check in, neighbors who waved without agenda. And slowly I started hosting Sunday dinners again. Not for blood family, for chosen family. People who didn't need me to prove my worth before pulling out a chair. People who never made me beg for space. They just made room. On the anniversary of Grandpa's death, I stood in the garden next to the magnolias. They were still small, still fragile, but rooted. So was I. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the origami crane, the one he folded with me, the one I carried through the worst days. I placed it gently at the base of the tree, not as a goodbye, as a reminder that what they tried to erase still lived here, in me. And if you're still watching, still reading, still listening, maybe you're the quiet one too. The one who always gave more than they took, who stayed when it hurt, who waited to be chosen. Let me say this to you now. You were never invisible. You still matter. Not because they finally saw you, but because you did. Because even when they tried to write you out of the story, you kept living. And now it's your turn to write the next chapter. The next morning, I stepped out onto the porch. Sunlight stretched across the yard like an invitation. No headlines, no courtrooms, no arguments. Just breath, just me, just this moment. I locked the door behind me. Not because I was leaving forever, because I had arrived. Fully. Finally. On my own terms. No more rehearsing conversations that never happened. No more explaining my pain in exchange for someone else's comfort. No more folding myself to fit their image of me. I wasn't a whisper anymore. I was a voice. And even if they never apologized, never understood, I was still whole. I was still here. Some stories don't end with a bang or a hug or a tearful reunion. Some stories end with stillness. And a beginning. Later that week, I got a message from the family attorney. The new one. Neutral tone, no warmth, just logistics. The estate would be legally restructured in accordance with the original trust. I'd receive full oversight over all previously contested properties. Callista had waived her appeal rights. It was done. No more hearings. No more surprise deeds or forged signatures. Just quiet clarity. Just justice, finally catching up. That night, I brewed tea and sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the wind brush against the magnolia leaves. In the quiet, I thought of the girl I used to be. The one who bent herself into someone else's idea of worthy. The one who smiled through being ignored. The one who always showed up, hoping it might mean something. She didn't disappear. She grew. She rose. And she built a life not out of what she was given, but out of what she refused to let be taken. A few weeks later, I received a card in the mail. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. Mom's. It simply read, "We're sorry. We don't expect anything. Just wanted you to know we're proud of you. Always." No signature. No plea. Just a line that landed like a stone in a still pond. And even though I didn't know what to do with it, I placed it in the drawer beside Grandpa's letter. Somewhere between pain and forgiveness. A space I wasn't ready to leave yet, but I wasn't avoiding anymore either. One Sunday, the house smelled like roasted rosemary and fresh bread. Not because of tradition, because I wanted it to. The table was set for 4, just a few close friends, people who showed up without expectation. People who knew me, as I was now, not who I'd been taught to be. We toasted with lemonade in mason jars and passed dishes without small talk that stung. No one called me sensitive like it was a flaw. No one measured my silence. They just let me be. After everyone left, I washed dishes with the window open and the breeze on my back. Then I sat on the porch again, bare feet on the wood, magnolias swaying gently like they were nodding at me. Like they knew. Like they remembered. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay. Stay soft when the world tells you to harden. Stay kind when you've been cast aside. Stay rooted when they try to dig you out. And sometimes, the victory isn't getting it all back. It's realizing you were never the one who lost anything. They did. They lost the quietest strength they had. The one who loved them despite everything. The one who built without credit. Who showed up without asking. Who remembered everything. So if you're still here, still listening, this is for you. For the ones who were overlooked. The ones who were told they were too much, too emotional, too soft. The ones who carried entire histories in silence. You are not invisible. You are not small. You are not dispensable. And you are not alone. This channel isn't just for storytelling. It's for healing. For restoration. For the voices that were quiet too long and finally decided to speak. So if this story felt like yours, hit subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Because you matter here. Always.